And I told you, nation states originated with Treaty of Westphalia. Now, what exactly is a nation state? I told it has 4 elements. Okay? Territory, population, government, sovereignty. Fine. Territory, population, government, and sovereignty. Now, what is the most important characteristic of the nation state? Okay? The most important characteristic of the nation state is sovereignty. Okay? Now, on the basis of this, we will understand the nation state. Okay? So, in your notes, you have already written. Those who have not written, they can write that there are 4 elements of the nation state, and the most important element is sovereignty. Okay. So now I will first discuss about sovereignty and the historical context so that you understand the concept of nation state. Sovereignty. In literal sense, sovereignty comes from the Latin word sovereignus. In literal sense, the term sovereignty comes from the Greek word superannus. What does this word denotes? It denotes supreme authority. It denotes supreme authority. Okay? You can write it down. Sovereignty denotes supreme authority. Okay? Now, what is this issue? Even this has to be understood. Okay? So, supreme authority is the characteristic of nation state. Fine. You can write side by side because this is a background information. I am dictating it slow. So supreme nation is a supreme authority. Sovereignty means supreme authority, and it is a characteristic of the nation state. Now, the nation state is an institution of modern times. Institution of modern times. Fine. You can write side by side. It is an institution of modern times. So, what was the situation in medieval times? Okay. In medieval times, in Europe, there were two centers of authority. Okay. One, the authority of church. Second, the authority of state. And it was not clear. Fine. It was not clear which of these is supreme. Fine. So I am repeating the entire thing. The most important characteristic of the nation state is sovereignty. Sovereignty means supreme authority. How to understand this supreme authority? So in the medieval Europe, there were two centers of power, and it was not clear which is supreme. Okay. This situation of lack of clarity, this situation of the confusion is described through the theory of two swords. Fine. The two swords. Swords of the church or sword of the state. Suppose king sentenced somebody to death, but the Pope says no, he will not be subjected to capital punishment. Now the dilemma is whose law will prevail. Okay. So in this context, fine. So I'm going slow. You can write side by side if you want. If you don't want, don't write. Understand only. So it was not clear which center of authority, which is the more, which will have the final say. This situation of dilemma is described through the theory of two swords. Fine. In the Treaty of Westphalia, it was finally agreed that the will of the king will prevail. Whose will prevail? Or let us say the will of state will prevail and not the church. This also means the separation between the church and state. And the separation of church and state also means the beginning of the European concept of secularism. Fine. So we will come back to this topic again, but for the time being, we have to understand that under the Treaty of Westphalia, ultimately it was decided that the will of state will prevail. This confusion was over. Okay. So this led to the emergence of the principle of sovereignty of the state. Fine. So how modern state differs from the state in medieval times. In medieval times, whether the sovereignty lies with the state was not clear, but in modern times, this principle was clearly established that the sovereignty lies with the state. Okay? Now, sovereignty has two dimensions, internal and external. Fine. External means freedom to conduct the foreign policy of choice. Internal means freedom to make laws in domestic sphere. Fine. So, freedom to conduct the foreign policy. Now, this is not so important at present. Somewhere else we will discuss. Fine. So, the defining characteristic of the nation state is sovereignty. Fine. In internal and external sphere. Okay. Now, let us open up the term nation. The term nation, you can write side by side. I am discussing it slowly. The term nation comes from the Latin word nasi. Fine. Nasi means race. Fine. The term nation comes from the Latin word nasi. Nasi means race. Race means and ethnic group. Fine. So ethnic group has its own identity. Identity can be language, religion, tribe. Okay, let's come back to the whole sequence. The term nation comes from the Latin word nasi. Nasi denotes race. Race means an ethnic group. Fine. And ethnic group has certain identity markers. It can be language, religion, tribe. Okay. So, the basis of nation can be a language, can be a race, can be a tribe. So, if we see the basis of nation in Europe, the European nations are formed on the linguistic basis. European nations are formed on linguistic basis. France is a country of French speaking. Germany is known as Deutschland. the land of those who speak German. Okay? Keep this information in mind. Okay? Now, see the Roman Empire. What exactly am I teaching right now? First thing, I want that you understand the meaning of nation state. Second thing, you understand the difference between the nation state and empires. And I want that your prime focus should be on the European history. Okay? So, as you know, that in medieval times, a division happened between East and West. The Western Europe has been under the Roman Empire. Okay? The eastern part has been under the Ottoman Empire around Central Asia, Eastern Europe, and then Russian Empire. Then what we see is Persian Empire further east. And then if you go further south, Mughal Empire. Fine. So there has been the difference in the evolution of the history in East and West. Fine. In medieval times, everywhere there have been empires. Don't write, understand this first. Medieval word can be seen as the Roman Empire in the West, Ottoman Empire, Eastern, Southern Europe, Central Asia. Then another very powerful empire was Persian Empire, and then the Mughal Empire. Now what happened was, as the world moved from medieval to modern, changes started happening here, but not here. Okay? This part remain under empires. But in this part, nation states started emerging. Fine. So, in political theory books, you may find a word, Oriental empires. Fine. So, for these empires, we can use the word Oriental empires. Even China was under Han dynasty empires. Okay? Let it be there. Forget it. Let us stick to the Western world, and when required, I will tell you about what happened in the East. Okay. So, in the Western world, what we see is the Roman Empire. So, means, let us just imagine a big entity where people belonging to the different different ethnic groups are living together. Okay. So let us say French is speaking, German is speaking, Italian is speaking, Greek is speaking. Fine. And I just told you that nation means nasi. Nasi means race. Races have their own identities. And the most important identity here has been language. So we can call this group of French speaking as French nation. Fine. This German nation, Italian nation, Greek nation. Okay. So you can use the term French ethnicity, French linguistic group, or the French nation. Fine. So as European empire became big, difficult to manage, out of this Roman Empire, where French nation means French ethnic group, German nation, German ethnic group, Italian nation, Italian ethnic group, Greek nation, Greek ethnic group, Hungarian ethnic group. So what is an empire actually? What is an empire? Empire is a big entity where different communities or nationalities exist. Fine. So empire are multinational in composition. Empires are multinational in composition. Fine. So if you see the Roman Empire, which nationalities were living? French, Germans, Italians, Greeks, Hungarians. Fine. So what is an empire? Multinational. Empire will have different nationalities in it. Okay. And as the empire will become weak, these nationalities, they will form the states or principalities of its own. I hope you have understood. So the first nation carved out of a Roman Empire was France. Fine. So all French speaking people together formed one nation. And they said that we want a state of our own. And the prince here said, this is my territory. This is the house of the French speaking people. I don't allow any external authority in my territory, and my will prevail. Neither the will of a church nor the will of an emperor will prevail. Emperor sitting in Rome, emperor's will not prevail. My will be prevail. Fine. So now what exactly is the nation state? where nation is made the unit of governance. What is a nation state? Where nation is made a unit of governance or the unit of a state. Fine. So in ancient time, we had city state. This is an adjective, nation state. Fine. So in city state, one city was seen as a unit of governance or a state. So city can be like you can say territorial idea. Fine. That this is what is actually a state, a self-sufficient entity. So this city is independent, autonomous. City will be the basis of a state. In modern times, what is the basis of a state? Nation. Nation means what? Nation means an ethnic group. An ethnic group has what properties? An ethnic group has its own language, its own religion. It can either language or the religion or the race can be the basis of nation. Is that clear? So in modern times, what is the basis of statehood? In ancient time, what was the basis of statehood? City. In modern times, what is the basis of statehood? Nation. If you can prove that you are a nation, you become eligible for statehood. I am repeating, in modern times, what is the basis of statehood? The answer is nation. It means that if a political community can establish itself as a nation, it becomes eligible for statehood. I am repeating it, you can note it down and pay attention. In modern times, what is the basis of statehood? The answer is nation. Nation is the basis of statehood. Okay? Right? It means if any community can establish itself as a nation, it becomes eligible for statehood. Okay? Fine. So, if any community establish itself as a nation, it qualifies. It will pass or not, it is a different thing. It qualifies for statehood. Fine. Pay attention that what can be the basis that you qualify for statehood if you can establish itself as a nation. Fine. Now I will again divert you and I will take you to two examples so that you understand. The first example is the creation of Pakistan. Fine. So by Independence Indian Independence Act 1947, two states came into existence. One, India, and the other, Pakistan. Fine. So on this subcontinent, before the formation of two nation states, this subcontinent was under an empire. Whose empire? Earlier Mughal Empire, and then British Empire. Like a Roman Empire in Europe got divided into the different states, the basis of formation of that state has been nation. Same thing, the British Empire in India was divided into the two states on this subcontinent, India and Pakistan. Okay, and they have been given statehood. India and Pakistan, they have been given statehood. They have been given statehood means they have been recognized, as independent states, means sovereign states in external and internal sphere. Now, what was the basis of the formation of a state? The basis of this formation, or the basis of the partition of the subcontinent and the creation of two empires, the creation of two states has been the two nation theory. The two nation theory given by Muslim League, the two nation theory propounded by Iqbal and Jinnah, and the theory said Hindus and Muslims are two nations. They are two nations, not one nation. Fine. And on the basis of this two nation theory, two nation states came into existence. So what is a nation state? Where the state sovereignty is granted on the basis of nation. Nation can be race, its basis can be religion. Here the basis is religion. The nation can be language. European nations carved out of Roman Empire on the basis of language. The two nations on this subcontinent carved out on the basis of religion. In 1947, again, the three states emerged on this subcontinent, but this time on the basis of language. When Pakistan and East and West Pakistan and Bangladesh was created on the basis of language, Pakistan was created on the basis of religion. Okay. So what is a nation state? When the criteria of, write in your copies, what is a nation state? Write the answer. When the criteria for the formation of states, that is recognition of sovereignty, is nation. Nation means, what is nation? nation is a community. The nearest. What is a nation state? Write the answer. When the criteria for the formation of states, that is recognition of sovereignty, is nation. Nation means, what is nation? Nation is a community. The nearest word to a nation is the Urdu of sovereignty is nation. Nation means, what is nation? Nation is a community. The nearest word to a nation is the Urdu word qaum, community, having its own language, religion, ethnicity. Okay, so if we see the history of modern India, before 1947 was empire. I told you the definition of empires means many nationalities exist in empire. So if you take Hindus and if you take many nationalities existing in this empire, fine. So if you take Hindus and Muslims as two separate nations, fine. Though at that point of time there was a demand for from other regions also. So the Nagas, the Mizos, the Tamils, the Sikhs, everybody was asserting their own nationhood. Fine. So empire, out of empire, nations were created. Gandhi's solution was something like, let us convert into the city-states or village republics. That was also a possibility, but nobody accepted that. We accepted this. And in 1971, from Pakistan, another nation on the basis of language, Bangladesh is created. Okay. Now the same thing happened in Middle East. Israel was created as a state on the basis of nation. Here the basis was Jewish religion. Our neighboring state, Sri Lanka, has faced similar type of demands. Sri Lanka comprising of two major communities, and the demand by LTTE was creation of a separate state for Tamils. Okay, so I hope you have understood the concept of nation, and my purpose is authority can be of various forms and not necessarily the form of any particular state. Okay, so now let us go back to the evolution story. Yeah, I was telling you one more example. If you know about the history of First World War, First World War started when a Serbian revolutionary killed the Prince of Austria. Fine. Now, at that point of time, these regions were, what is Serbia, Bosnia, Herzegovina, these regions were under Ottoman Empire. And there were nationalities, Bosnians, Serbs. They were demanding their independence from the Ottoman Empire. In the First World War, US played a prominent role, and in the First World War, Ottoman Empire was defeated. A treaty of Sevres was imposed, and out of Ottoman Empire, some new states have been created. That time, the president of USA was Woodrow Wilson, and Woodrow Wilson had given his famous speech. That speech is known as 14 points speech. Okay? Woodrow Wilson gave 14 points speech. And in this speech, he also held that he gave the principle of national self-determination. This is also a very important principle of international politics. If you establish yourself as a separate nation, you can be given a statehood. Okay? So that is why if you see, in India, two examples we take, Kashmir and Punjab. The Khalistan movement, it was also a movement for self-determination, that on the basis of religion, a separate state to be created. Similarly, the movement of Kashmir is also for the national self-determination. They emphasize on the identity of Kashmiriyat, separate from identity of India. And one of the bases for the national self-determination movement, or so-called the Azadi movement. And this, more they establish themselves different from the Indian identity, that can be one of the bases to grant the statehood. Okay, so I hope you have understood this. So now let us reconnect the threads. Let us go back to the European history. So ancient Greece, city states. Next, medieval time, the Roman Empire. What is empire? Where many nationalities are clubbed. This has given way to the nation state, where every nation in Europe, based on language, got its own state. Fine. And then, because of colonialism, nation state became the organizing principle of political life around the world. This experiment has not been very successful in the developing countries or the poor countries or which were under colonialism. Okay? And then if you see in Europe, what happened after the formation of Europe? Emergence of international politics, wars among the nations of Europe. Fine. Wars among the nations of Europe led to First World War, led to Second World War, and the amount of destruction that happened compelled European politicians to think for an alternative political system. This led to the beginning of European Union. European Union is also an example of a state. Fine. So, after Second World War, in Europe, we call it as a post-modern era. And here we see a transformation that nation states started shifting their sovereignty to a supranational institution known as European Union. A different type of a state, fine, and shifting of the sovereignty. And European Union can again be compared with a new type of empire. What was a Roman Empire? Different nationalities together. What was a European Union? What is European Union? Different nationalities together. This is also one of the best examples of globalization. Globalization means what? A borderless world. Fine. But what is happening now? We are again witnessing deglobalization. Since 2008 global financial crisis. After that, we see Trump's America first. We also see Brexit and then COVID, which has catalyzed the process of deglobalization, where the nation states again became prominent. The nutshell of this discussion is that throughout history, the forms of states are changing, and there has been a process of fission and fusion. From city-state, you see combination in Roman Empire disintegrated, nation-state forms, nation-states came together, European Union has formed, and again the deglobalization trend starting. In small terms, we see Brexit, and COVID has given a very thick, powerful blow to this supranational governance and strengthened the situation of the nation states. So in the history of Western political thought, we will be studying about state, and with each thinker, the form of the state will change. So in tomorrow's lecture, I will start with the theory of city-state in the works of Socrates. I hope this lecture has helped you in bringing some clarity. Thank you.